Continuing now, Be'ezrat Hashem Yisbarach, in the letters of the Rebbe regarding this that there isn't a Yischal to the geula, with this they didn't went to Eretz Yisrael, and with this that there's a state of Israel, etc., etc. The Rebbe's opinion on this. We are up to page Taf Yud Ches, letter Vav. But my Nalme, the Rebbe is answering to someone that asks the Rebbe, has the geula started yet? Is there already a Yischal to the geula? So the Rebbe writes, but my Nalme chtovei, by shoyel im yesh kvar Yischal to the geula iloi. In answer to your question that you're writing to me in your letter, do we have already the Yischal to the geula or not? So the Rebbe says, this is a wonder on your question. I'm wondering how could you even ask such a question, such a question when there's such a simple answer. This is a simple thing. This is paskin in Halacha through the great teacher, the Rambam, in the end of Hilchas Malachim, Yusad al Kama Ksuvim B'Teiro B'Navim V'Razal, which what the Rambam is writing is not made up by the Rambam, rather it is based upon and founded upon a couple of psukim, ksuvim, b'teira, b'nevim, razal. And there the Rambam writes, what's the way this chal to the geula is going to take place? What is the way this chal to the geula is going to take place? The Rambam writes, sheyameid melech mibeis David. First of all, there needs to get up a king from the house of David. Heike b'teira v'esik b'mitzvahs, which he himself is toiling, learning Torah in the deepest way, and is occupied in the fulfillment of its mitzvahs. The Yaakov called Yisrael leilach b'alachazik bidke. He will force all the Yidden to go in the ways of Torah and strengthen the cracks of Yiddishkeit. V'hu dafka v'yikabitz nitche Yisrael, and him specifically will be the one to take all the Yidden to Eretz Yisrael. Ayin Shom. Go look in the Rambam, where the Rambam says clearly, who is the one to take everyone to Eretz Yisrael? This is Stavke the Melech HaMashiach. And so too the Rambam Paskins in the end of the Hilchas Tshuva, in the end of Parik Tes also he says, who's Melech HaMashiach, and what is Melech HaMashiach, and what is he going to do, and what is the Meisa Mashiach? So the Rebbe is saying, how could you even ask a question? We have already this chal to the geula? What are you asking such questions about things that are so simple? Look in the Rambam. See. You'll see how simple it is and how clear it is. What the Rambam says. When is the Yischal to the geula? You're asking me, are we have the Yischal to the geula? The Rebbe says, where are we now? We are in the golus, in the darkness, the deepest darkness of the golus. When the darkness of the golus is doubled and quadrupled, the double darkness of the golus, that itself is doubled. Even more than the way it was in generations before us. So not only have we not come to a Yischal to the geula, rather we have come to a deeper darkness in the double and quadruple darkness that it was in generations before us. Why? Because a couple of Gdei Yisrael, a couple of the special Yidden, they were lighting up the Golas with that they were Gdei Yisrael, they're not alive anymore. This is after the Holocaust, after all the generations. So the Rebbe is saying the darkness of Golas is even greater than the way it was in generations before. Especially like the way it says in the end of Masechta Seita, it says, and then in Sanhedrin where it speaks about the Simonim, it says, Mishameis, this is Batla, Anava Viras Cheit, and it's going through Mishamei, like when the Gdei Yisrael went to Menuchas, that itself it strengthened the darkness of Golas. So the Rebbe says, all of this darkness that there is not enough. All of this is ein gereise choshech kafel Umachupol oid yoser mederit shelafanenu. There's choshech. There's a double choshech. There's this doubled choshech is also doubled. It's quadrupled, and then there's even more than the way it was in the deret shelafanenu that Gdei Yisrael holchul menuches. And all of this is not enough. It was also fulfilled what it says, that they have put darkness to light. There is oil left, and they darkened even that little light that's left. And they take the darkness and they say, this is light. They take the choshech kafel and machupal of the galus, and they say this is chalta de geula, which that is samim oir lachoshech, and choshech laoir, that Torah and mitzvahs, and the emes geula, and the emes is chalta de geula through Mashiach Tzidkenu, which this was the light of Yidden, and through all the days, they say, we're going to make our own oir, which that itself is samim oir lachoshech. V'yiratzein, the Rebbe ends off, asher tachas shaylis binyanim v'amurim. Instead of asking me these questions, do we have this chalta de geula because of these events happening in Eretz Yisrael? Yenatzel manu ila hasmado shkida belimut tereseinu agdeisha benigle ubchsidus v'yetziv mehidr b'kima mitzvahs. You should use out your time to be masmid, to be stuck, to be focused in learning Torah, Nigla the holy Torah, Nigla the Torah, Chassidus, and you should add in being mahadir, in the fulfillment of mitzvahs, Shekol pa'ula kazu, meisifa oir be'ilam, o ma'at oir teicha afilu harbe cheshech, o ma'kar v'alidei zeh kates hagolus hamar. So the Rebbe says you should use out your time to add and to be steiging and learning Nigla the Torah, learning Chassidus, adding Hidden and Kivim HaMitzvahs, which every single Pa'ula adds light. We're talking about Choshech Kafel and Machupal, Oid Yesem and Deret Shlefanenu, Kevin Shekam and Megdel Yisrael Holchol Menuchas. The Rebbe is saying how Choshech it is. How do we get rid of this Choshech? How do we bring the Oid Agula B'Poyel Mamish? The Emes Agula, this is through adding in being in the Samadish Kiddulan and Torah, Nigla the Torah Chassidus, adding in Hidden Kivim, which each one of this adds light in the world, and a little light pushes away even a lot of darkness, and this brings closer the end of this bitter galus. Okay, now we're holding by a very famous letter of the Rebbe, where the Rebbe explains his opinion on this idea of chalta de geula. This is actually a translation from a letter of the Rebbe written in English, where the Rebbe explains his opinion in length, and the Rebbe actually translated this letter to several different languages also, not only to English. The Rebbe translated it also to Italian, if I'm not mistaken, and sent it out to some people, the same letter. It's a very famous and important letter, where the Rebbe explains his whole opinion on this idea of chalta de geula in very analyzing in length and bepratius. The Rebbe starts off. Ha'ara harishayna sha'alai lahoir hi shekasher holchim ladun oidis shayla yochel liyez diyun mashmausi rak be'im shnei hatstadim makabel manochis mesiyamas ki yesay lediyun. The Rebbe says, my first thought is, if two people are having a conversation, two people are having a diyun, so before you get into the diyun, before you get into the conversation, you have to make sure that both of them accept certain standards, the way you look at something. If one guy doesn't even believe in Torah, so you're going to bring him a proof from Torah, doesn't mean anything. If a guy doesn't even believe in the Eibishter, he doesn't care what it says in the Torah, so you're going to come bring him proofs from Chumash, from Psukim, to help nicht. There needs to be a certain, if you're going to run a debate, and you want it to be if you want it to have a purpose and not just be a waste of time, you need to see, first of all, are there any things that you have to make sure that what you're talking about, they both agree on. There's certain things that they agree for this to be a foundation what they could talk on. So the Rebbe writes, "Mimichtavcha ani roye sheshneinu mekirim b'teira shebeksav or b'teira shebal peh kesamchus she'eina shnei b'machlekes." From your letter, I see that both of us know about teira shebeksav. Both of us know about teira shebal peh, and these both of us know that this is something that we can rely on, and this is something important, that there's no conflict. If the Torah says something, you can't say, I don't hold of the Torah. If the Rebbe would be dealing with someone that doesn't hold of the Torah, so then you need to go further back and start bringing proofs, machlal, first of all, that the Torah is emes. So here the Rebbe is saying, this guy believes in Torah, he believes in Chazal, so therefore, what does the Rebbe do? The Rebbe says, I see that you do hold of Torah and Chazal, so what do I need to prove to you now? I just need to show you what is the shit of Torah, what is the shit of Chazal. So the Rebbe explains. So now that we both have a common language, we both have hold of the Torah, and we both believe in the Torah, and we both hold that the Torah is something that this is an unchangeable thing. We both agree and accept the Torah. So let's see, what does the Torah say? What is geula? What is Mashiach? Musbar bebirur hein b'Torah shebeksav ve'hein b'Torah shebal peh. It's explained clearly in Torah shebeksav and in Torah shebal peh shahahitiachsut shel haYehudim hi shagolus lo yibach et itzah shel nesivis tzva'uyos. The Jewish people's perspective, the Jewish people's yachas to Golus, how do we perceive Golus? How do we look at Golus? What is Golus according to the Jewish perspective? Golus is not something that happened because some army was stronger than us and kicked us out of Eretz Yisrael. That's not why we went into Golus. We don't look at Golus is that there was an army that was more people than the Yidden. This was also not the whole Golus that we're in, didn't come, it's not a Tirtza'ah. This is not something that happened because of its in effect to this, that there was some pressure from some organizations or something that forced us to be given over to some stronger power, some superpower that's stronger than us. No, that's not our view on Golus. Right? Golus is not some technical thing that some army got stronger than us, or some government, or the Kalkala, some power, no, they were stronger than us. No, that's not Golus. Rather, what is our view on Golus? What do we look at Golus? What is Golus? It's explained enough, and more than enough, again and again in Chumash. It's explained very clearly again and again in Torah, including full sidros of the Torah, full parshas. K'kain b'chukoisai, kisovoi v'chulu, v'b'sifrei hanevim, v'yesel b'talmud v'b'safres harabonis. Shebeim b'nei Yisrael, hayu tomid dveikim b'Torah mitzvahs, hem lo hayu nishlachem legalus. It says clearly in the Torah, in Sifrei Nevi'im, and especially even more in the Talmudic writings through our teachers, our sages, that if the Jewish people would be connected and devoted and united and dovuk, stuck, one with the Torah and mitzvahs, they would never ever been sent into the Golus. We would never go into Golus. Even though the Jewish people are the smallest nation from all the nations of the world, nevertheless, the Jewish people would have never been thrown into Golus. We would never been sent into Golus. Even though the Jewish people were much less in the kamut, in the amount of Jewish people, of a mishkal b'munachim shal chayzik tzvay v'gashmi, and so too in the weight when it's talking in regards to the army. Always the Jewish army was much smaller and less than the armies of the other nation and the amount of people that there are in other nations. Like David HaMelech clearly says this in one small sentence. Eile boim barechev, ve'eile basusim, v'anachanu b'shem Hashem Elokeinu nasker. These nations of the world are coming with their wagons. These guys are coming with their horses, and we don't have these wagons. We don't have these horses. They could have a stronger army than us. What are we going with? We're going with Eibishter's name. We're going to fight with Eibishter's name. Eibishter is saying Hashem's name. That's what's going to help us. So why are we in Galus? Not because we have a smaller army, we're less than other nations of the world. No, that's not the reason. The reason we're in Galus is because we were not connected enough and stuck and united and one with the Torah. On the other hand, when the Jewish people leave away and drop off Torah and mitzvahs, chas v'shalom, shum koyach hayutz mitzvahs, v'av shum brisis politiyos v'chulu lo yoyilu. No power and no army and no making any political covenants with other nations of the world for peace and this and that. Nothing's going to help if the Jewish people are not connected to Torah and mitzvahs. If the Jewish people are not connected to Torah and mitzvahs, no army in the world and no deal and no heskem or anything that will help at all. If you're going to go with me with this cold way, with saying that happened to be, why did this happen to us? It happened to be. If you're gonna go with me in such a way, I'm gonna go with you also in such a way. You're gonna leave my Torah and mitzvahs, I'm gonna go with you with the same way. I'm gonna leave you guys go. And with this is going to cause for the impossible to take away, impossible effect of the Yidden going into Golus. There's no way of stopping this Indian of going into Golus if Yidden are not connected to Torah and mitzvahs. The irreversible effect of going into Golus. Says the Rebbe, V'oid hanal ha'bchino ha'amitis shel me'oirois lides ha'im hei mevasirim mis'ha'geula ilav. According to all what we said before, what do we understand? What is Golus? What is Golus? What put us into Golus? This that we left Torah and mitzvahs. This that we're in Golus is not because of an army that was stronger than us. And we don't care if there's an army stronger than us. If we are connected to Torah and mitzvahs, we're not going into Golus. What is Golus? Golus means that we're separated from Torah and mitzvahs. What is geula? That we're connected to Torah and mitzvahs. Says the Rebbe, according to all of this, if you want to know if a certain event or a certain thing, is this thing connected to the geula? Is this a sign for the geula? Is this have any type of a connection to the geula? How do we know? The only way to see if something is connected to the geula or not is to see if the things that caused and made the galus changed. If the thing that made the galus stays the same way, then it doesn't make a difference. Whatever you're going to do, whatever piece of land you're going to make, as many Yidden you're going to take to Eretz Yisrael, so meint gurnisht. This is not a ischalte de geula, not a ischalte de ischalte de geula. It's not achana to the geula. So it's gurnisht. If it doesn't change what the idea, the whole mohus of galus and geula, if you don't see the cause of galus, which means leaving Torah and mitzvahs changing. If you don't see Yidden being Mekayim Torah and mitzvahs more, b'yetzer seis, b'yetzer reiz, b'yetzer hidur, then it's nothing. It's not to turn with the geula. What does that mean? If you don't see any change in the connection to Torah and mitzvahs, then there's no change also in the status if something has to do with geula. So basically, the Rebbe is saying in very simple words. What is galus? Galus. What made galus? That we left Torah and mitzvahs. How do we know if something, if any matzif, has to do with the opposite of galus? If it's geula, it's to see if the cause of galus gets minimized. If the cause of the galus gets minimized, which means the Yidden are doing more, are connecting more to Torah and mitzvahs, then you can know if the darkness of galus got minimized. But if you don't see that, then it's the same old galus. Nekuda Neisef is another point. After the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, so there was no Beis Hamikdash, and the galus already started. The Yidden were in galus. When there was not a possibility of a question if you should fast on the 17th of Tammuz or Tisha B'Av, because the Beis Hamikdash, obviously Yidden fasted all these fast days. There was a destruction, there was a churban. Even after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, there were still Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. Even though these Yidden were in Eretz Yisrael, right, the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, and there's still Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, they are in Galus. They still have the obligation right after the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash to fulfill all the things that are connected with Galus, all the fast days. And even more than that, the Rebbe says, those that were in Eretz Yisrael and they saw the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, they needed to feel the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash even more than other people that were in Eretz Yisrael, that weren't in Eretz Yisrael. Those that were in Eretz Yisrael felt the galus even more, even stronger. So this, that you're in Eretz Yisrael or not, doesn't really make a difference, the Rebbe is saying. And Adarabah, if someone's in Eretz Yisrael, he's meant to feel the churban of the galus even more. Hovei nizkar gam shakim shal Tisha B'Av v'chulu yizbatza afilu b'zman gedalia ben achikom. Habayshal Yehudi shal Akila Yehudi is Eretz Yisrael lifnei shenirtzach aldei Yishmael malachim beis chavei chavei. So too, let's remember that the fulfillment, fasting on Tisha B'Av, was fulfilled even in the time of Gedalia ben Achikam, which he was the last Jewish king. He was a Jewish leader in Eretz Yisrael before he got killed through Yishmael. But nevertheless, they fulfilled Tisha B'Av. They were in Galus. There was a Churban. So the Rebbe is coming to say Al Derech Zeh now. You didn't in Eretz Yisrael. But being an Eretz Yisrael on its own doesn't mean much regarding the idea of Galus and Geula. No one is even having a doubt that either when they were in Eretz Yisrael after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, that they were in Galus, they were in the Churban of the Galus. This was Galus. Just like it's in many other concepts in Torah. There are some places in Torah that this Indian is explained in length. So too, but not so many in Yonim and Torah. Sometimes it's in very, very long. Not everyone has the koyach to learn the Indian the way it's long and Gemara with the line Arichos and Pulim. So there's the way you can learn this Indian the way it's short and summarized in a short to the point. And it's because not everyone has the time, the ability, the savlanut, the zitzfleisch. Not everyone has the ability, the relaxation to sit down and to to learn the thing the way it's in its original source. You have to see the way it's in short. Says the Rebbe, Kach onu moitzim gamis haneis hamadubar menusach b'monochem etumtsasim al dei mereinu agadol Rambam. So too, regarding all what we said before, we find this idea brought down in condensed and short words through the great teacher Harambam the Rambam. We see this in the words of the Rambam, that he was the leader, the guider of the perplexed, those that were lost. He was their guider to show them the right way, which means so to regarding geula. What's geula? What's his how to do geula? What's geulus? How do we know when the geulus finishes? The Rambam is the Moidi, shows us clearly what's the way, not only for those that don't know in his generation, but to all the generations. Where does he do this? In his book Yada Chazaka, who metar b'munachim k'tzorim ach ma'oid mashma'usiyim es ha'matzav b'tkufa acharinu shal ha'golus k'vi sheyiyah v'keitza tove achakach tchilas ha'gula. The Rambam over there says in very short words, but very, very meaningful words and very precise words, the way, the state of the end of Golus, what is the end of the Golus going to look like, and how will come the Ischal to the Geula. B'ezras Hashem, we will continue in the next class with reading the Rambam and explaining the Rambam, and with Hashem's help, even before we read it, we should see everything being fulfilled in the Geula, Amitzvah Shlema, Halidei Mashiach Tzidkeinu, Teikif Umeyad, Mamish now. Agad Chodesh.